It really feels like the entire tech industry just woke up from a decade-long party and suddenly realized, oh, wait, the rent is due? All that breathless hype? It's pretty much over. And now a massive reality check is settling in. So today, we're going to connect the dots on this great reset as we watch the whole industry shift its focus from just cool, shiny objects to cold, hard cash. Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah, this question right here, this is basically the bumper sticker for 2026. It's the new mantra for absolutely everyone, from the hardware giants all the way down to the buzziest AI startups. It's not about what's possible in the future anymore. It's all about what's profitable right now. And this slide just nails that shift perfectly. We're moving out of what you could call the hype cycle, the era of cool demos and what felt like science fair experiments, and we're moving right into the deployment cycle. The new goal isn't just to wow people anymore. It's something the industry calls workflow capture, which is really just a fancy way of saying, can your tech get integrated into a business and actually make the money or save the money? That's the whole game now.
Okay, so our first major dot to connect is a real shocker, and it shows this trend playing out in the physical world. I mean, for decades, Sony was television. They owned the living room. But in a pretty stunning move, this legacy giant is pivoting away from the center of our homes. 51%. That's the number that just made everyone's jaw drop. Sony is selling a 51%, that's a controlling stake, in its entire home entertainment division to the Chinese manufacturing behemoth, TCL. And let's be clear, this isn't some friendly partnership. This is a handover.
And yeah, that word controlling is absolutely the key here. Look at this list. TCL isn't just snapping parts together. They are taking over the entire operation, top to bottom. Starting in 2027, they're going to run the whole show, from the very first design sketch all the way to the person you call when your screen goes blank. Sony is essentially handing TCL the keys to the entire Bravia kingdom. So, did this just come out of nowhere? Not at all. What's so interesting here is that you can see this was not a random decision. It's really the final step in a strategy that's been going on for a decade. The TV hardware market is just a brutal, low-margin business. So Sony is strategically pulling back from these fights to build what they call a fortress balance sheet, focusing instead on their high-margin stuff, like the PlayStation and their movie studios.
So you have to ask, what's in it for TCL? Why did this deal? Well, it boils down to two things: credibility and access. Let's face it, in the current geopolitical climate, it's really tough for a Chinese brand to crack into the high-end US market. This quote just sums it up perfectly. By grabbing the trusted Bravia brand, TCL gets a shortcut straight to the top shelf. It's like they're wearing a Sony costume to get invited into the party.
All right, so let's pivot from the physical world to the software world, because a very similar story is playing out there. While Sony is busy restructuring its hardware, AI is finally shifting from, writing poetry to actually clocking in and getting a job. The era of practical, money-making AI is here, and it's called agentic AI. So what is an agent? What's the actual difference? Well, think of it this way. A chatbot is kind of like a consultant. It's passive. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer, and then it basically goes back to sleep. An agent, on the other hand, is like an employee. It's active. You give it a goal, like, hey, book a meeting with Sarah for next week, and it actually goes off and does the multi-step task all by itself. It has hands it can use in the digital world.
But for a business to actually trust this stuff, it has to be reliable, right? You can't have it making things up. And that's where the real breakthrough comes in, something called deep comp. In the past, an AI might just confidently give you the wrong answer. Now, with deep comp, it's like the AI has its own internal fact checker. Before it gives you anything, it runs its own work through a whole verification process, catching and fixing its own mistakes. You only see the final, polished product. And that reliability, that's the holy grail for businesses. And when you look at the money side of this, wow. The projections are absolutely insane. The market for agentic AI is forecast to grow from about $5 billion this year to $200 billion by 2034. That's a 40-fold increase. And why? It all comes back to that one idea: workflow capture. If an AI can reliably handle your scheduling or write code or do customer support, it becomes a massive cost-saving tool that companies will pay for in a heartbeat.
And what's fueling all this is that the new models are becoming hyper-efficient. Just take a look at Falcon H1R. It's a pretty small model, only 7 billion parameters, but it's outperforming models that are 2 or 3 times its size on really complex tasks. This just proves that the new race isn't about being the biggest, it's about being the smartest and most efficient.
And this is where it gets really wild. This efficiency is now jumping out of the computer and into the physical world. NVIDIA's new physical AI suite uses something called vision language action models. See, a traditional AI is kind of a brain in a jar, but this tech gives that brain eyes and hands. It doesn't just see a coffee cup. It understands that the cup is hot. It knows where the coaster is, and it can tell a robot arm exactly how to move it without spilling a drop. It connects perception directly to action.
Okay, so we've got legacy hardware giants restructuring, and we've got this new practical AI getting to work. So what happens when these two massive forces collide? Well, you get a great consolidation. All the cool innovators, they're suddenly for sale. And if you want the poster child for this whole trend, look no further than Capital One buying the fintech darling Brex. Just a few years ago, Brex was a unicorn valued at over $12 billion. It was just acquired for $5.15 billion. That's a valuation haircut of more than 50%. It's a huge signal that the era of the standalone fintech unicorn is over.
And this gets right to the heart of the matter. This whole rent is due economy has completely flipped the script. It's not about burning cash for growth anymore. Startups are finding it almost impossible to go it alone, which means the real power has shifted to the massive, established companies. They're the ones with the cash, so instead of building innovation from scratch, they can just go shopping for it.
And this table just connects all the dots for us beautifully. It's the exact same pattern playing out everywhere you look. On one side, you've got the landlords. These are the companies that own the core infrastructure, whether it's manufacturing plants or banking licenses or huge communications networks. And on the other side, they're acquiring the innovators, the companies with the brilliant cutting-edge tech. The big are getting bigger by buying the brilliant.
And when you pull all of these threads together, you end up with the central conflict of 2026. It's a paradox, really, an irresistible force meeting an immovable object. It's the dizzying speed of software running smack into the hard limits of the physical world. For 50 years, we all lived by Moore's law, right? Computing power roughly doubles every 2 years. Well, we're now living under a new Moore's law, where AI capability isn't just growing fast, it's growing at a frankly terrifying exponential rate. 4 months. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the new doubling time for AI capability. That means an AI model that comes out in May will be twice as powerful as the ones we're talking about today. The pace of progress is now happening 3 times a year. It's just incredible.
But here's the immovable object. We are hitting what some are calling the memory wall. While the software's potential is exploding exponentially, the physical supply of the stuff you need to run it, memory chips, data centers, the actual energy, is growing linearly if it's growing at all. Demand is just completely outpacing our planet's ability to produce this stuff. And that right there, that's the core tension of our time. You have this irresistible force of software innovation, and it's meeting the immovable object of physical reality. We can dream up AI that's twice as powerful every 4 months, but we simply cannot build the hardware for it that fast.
Which leaves us with this one final provocative question. In a world where AI code gets exponentially better and cheaper, but the physical infrastructure becomes the biggest bottleneck, who really holds the power? Is it the genius innovator writing the next great model? Or is it the landlord, the company that owns the factories, the banking licenses, and the power grids you need to make any of it real? The lesson of 2026 seems to be pretty clear. Code is cheap, but infrastructure is gold.